I'm Gab. He's not Jules. He's Don Hutchison.
Hey.
I'm back. It's a tag team. Jules is off celebrating his birthday. Don, you're still here.
I'm still here, mate. Yeah, second show in about 4 days. Loving it.
All right. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to all of us. You may have noticed it's International Week, but don't worry. There's still plenty to talk about because UEFA approving the big international game in Miami, La Liga, Villarreal in Barcelona, and also Milan against Como, all the way in Perth, Australia. How about that? We're going to get into that in a little bit. We're going to get into Jim Ratcliffe's comments. Positivity Corner with Sir Jim. How about that?
Is it?
Oh, yes. He's backing Ruben Amorim to the hill.
Yes.
We got Women's Champions League. We got a bunch of other stuff going on. Changes potentially to the Champions League going forward. But let's start with something else. Let's start with... All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see a picture of Lamine Yamal here.
Not a great picture.
Well, it's sad, Lamine Yamal, because obviously he's injured again. He's missed time. It's the issue. I want to take advantage of. I want to talk about this broader issue, right? So there's a debate about too much football being played by the elite teams.
Yeah.
When you look at the minutes, it's not that different to your time,
Nope.
which, by the way, Don's time
Still in colour.
it was still in color. Don played in the Premier League era. Don't be mean. I'm told, anecdotally, that two things. One is that the difference compared to when you played, and I want to get to the bottom of this. One is that there's more intensity in the game today.
Which
so
is
they
fair.
may be covering the same ground, but they're sprinting more, and that puts more of a strain. And secondly, that sometimes they bring younger players along much more quickly. I know, obviously, Maldini at 17 and Beckenbauer and Michael Owen, but Michael Owens and Wayne Rooney, there are other examples because there's people who then suffered a lot of injuries throughout their career.
And I just had a lovely voice note from Michael as well, which we'll get into, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. So let's take the first one first. Is this game that much more intense than when you played, say, mid-90s to mid-2000s?
No, I think everyone probably looks at the walking football that was being played in the 70s and the 80s, which it was. It was walking football.
But we're not comparing it to
exactly. The 90s and the noughties was so intense. Every game was a battle. Every game was a fight. You had to put the work in. You had to put the miles in. You just said it there. I bet if you totted up all the games that these young players players these days are playing now. We used to play Boxing Day and the day after. We used to play 2 games in 2 days.
And you were sprinting as much as they are.
Absolutely.
You were sprinting as fast as
I wasn't sprinting as much as Yamal. No, there's a different sort of player. But I think it's a brilliant debate. I think it's fascinating because I don't really think we'll ever get to the bottom of it. But there's pros and cons. You know, these guys are running on elite pitches. We were not running on
elite
elite
pitches in a second. You were playing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
My impression as somebody who's watching football, covering football in that era, is that that's undoubtedly true of the Premier League. I think in La Liga and in Serie A, certainly, the pace was slower. It was a more technical game. There was less of an intensity.
Fair.
So I'm going to throw this out as a theory. Could it be that football becomes more globalized, styles meshed? Really, with the advent of Pep at Barcelona, way back in 2008, 2009, there was a high possession team, but when they lost the ball, they all sprinted to win it back.
Yeah.
That's changed, and certainly in La Liga, there has been a big jump in intensity. And then maybe if Lamine Yamal had come around 20 years ago when it was perhaps less intense, he would have had no issue playing at that young age.
Well, maybe the intensity comes from, which I wish I could have my days back again, is these guys take care of the body. You know, we played off the pitch just as hard as we played on the pitch. And it probably got you through to a certain level. But you probably, when I look back now at my career, if I had been teetotal and looked after my body how I should have done back then, a different culture, I reckon I probably left 15, 20% out there. You look at these guys now, and they are getting the max out of their body. So maybe they're putting their body under more strain. So maybe it's got nothing to do with the miles that they're covering or the intensity of the sprints. But these guys are so fit, like racehorses, whippets. Any small thing in their body can go against them with an injury.
It's interesting because what you're saying seems slightly counterintuitive. So if you're a phenomenal athlete, if you're so finely tuned, if you
When's this? Now?
No. Yeah. I need to wrap this segment up. So I'm just going to kind of, you just tell me if
I just think there's more things to go wrong if you're so fit.
That's the point I was getting to. So basically, you heard it here. Don Hutchison argues that maybe if Lamine Yamal was a less serious professional, maybe if he drank a little bit,
no, then
he'd be less.
Then
he wouldn't be as injury prone.
You take my point. These guys are so finely tuned.
All right, Don. Just to make it clear about what you were saying on the intensity piece of it, you explained this a little bit off air.
Yeah,
but essentially, the games were just as intense back then.
Yeah,
it's just that you weren't moving as fast.
Exactly.
As these guys.
Exactly.
Because these guys are generally they're
being trained better, they're fitter,
they're being trained better, and so on.
Yeah.
What I don't follow though is why do they pick up more injuries than you do? Is it just because they move faster? Because I guess the point is, and I remember this years ago from a guy like Christian Vieri who was exceptionally fast, like Gyökeres is, for example, but also big and strong.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of build, which Yamal doesn't, but Yamal's not small either, and you push the body, no matter how fit you are, like there's diminishing returns on what your fitness and your preparation can do.
Yeah.
If at the same time you're going faster and harder.
Yeah.
And more.
But you mentioned Vieri, which is a good point. But if you drop Christian Vieri into the modern game, he would be a lot fitter and a lot sharper than he was 25 years ago.
I don't think fitness was his problem.
But I don't mean fitness. See, when I say fitness, I mean the whole conversation is fitness, where you eat the right things. You don't drink any alcohol whatsoever. Right. So your body is tuned to being an elite athlete, which these boys are these days. So our intensity back in the 90s was still 100% from me. But if you drop that intensity compared to now, because you're not living your lifestyle right, and you're not the whippet that you should be, you're going to probably pick up one or two more injuries.
Put a little bit different. You were like a VW Beetle, and you put the pedal down to the max.
We all did.
And you were going as fast as you could.
We all did.
These guys are in a Ferrari.
Exactly.
And they go faster than you.
Exactly.
However, because there's limits to how fast you can go and maintain your integrity, they are more likely to get injured, especially if they play at a young age. Yeah. This is another theme I want to get into, which is young players. I mean, you mentioned Michael Owen there, who we were in
just had a great voice note from him. Yeah.
For those who don't know, for those who are too young to know about Michael Owen's early career, young phenom, super fast, breaks into. I think he made his debut for Liverpool on the last day of a season and scored. Yeah. And then went on.
Played for England at like 17, Ballon d'Or, early 20s. The fastest thing on two legs, and when he was a teenager.
He suffered an injury. I think it was against Leeds United.
Ripped his hamstring.
And then after that, he lost a lot of his pace. He still had his technical ability.
Yeah.
He didn't become slow overnight, but he didn't have that breakaway speed that he had.
His slowness, as he called it, would have been bringing himself down to our level, where he was rapid as a teenager.
Right. Which meant that you could catch him. At the end of his career.
Yeah, when he's got no hamstrings, But he left a fascinating voice note, didn't he? Saying he's not sure if you can ever get to the bottom of it. Well, he thinks it might have been genetic because his dad was a footballer, suffered bad hamstrings, and his brothers did as well.
And that opens up a whole other argument, right? So, I mean, I remember when Lamine Yamal broke into the first team, I think, or when he started training with them, I think he was still 15. And I remember having this conversation with Jules, and I said, like, I don't see the point when you're a growing boy of pushing somebody this far. Yes, there are people who have long careers and make their debuts very young. I mentioned Maldini before. But those are outliers. Our bodies are all different. Yeah. And it's interesting that he brought up genetics. And I genuinely wonder, is this something Barcelona, not picking Barcelona, any club, I mean, Arsenal with Max Dowman, Milan with Camarda. Like, there's a lot of examples like that. Do they go, and to what degree can they access, for example, somebody's genetic history? Does that play into it? Or do they just take the measurables and say, Lamine, okay, we can probably measure if Lamine is still, if his body's still growing. I mean, now he's 18, maybe not, but sometimes it continue.
Yeah.
We can measure his size. We can do tests on his muscles, and we can say, yes, you're ready to play this much.
Yeah.
But without that genetic element,
it's very hard.
It's hard, right?
It's very hard. I mean, let's just take it back 25, 30 years ago when Arsene Wenger, when we mentioned Ray Wilkins before, and Arsene Wenger wanted to meet the parents of a young player because he wanted to get an idea how tall they would be. So that's like 25 years ago. My fascination is where we're going to be in 25 years' time. It's going to be amazing. I talked to Joel Ward about Oliver Glasner the other day, taking blood samples every single day to try and preempt any sort of injury. It's fascinating. With young players like Yamal and Max Dowman and all these young kids that are trying to break their way into first teams, I don't think there's any patience from these young players because they know how good they are and they want to play, which is a great thing.
Was there patience in your day?
With smaller squads and...
I'm just curious. Tell me your story, right? So you played for West Ham, you played for Everton, you played for Sunderland, despite being a Newcastle fan.
Depends how good you are,
You played for Liverpool.
Because the Robbie Fowlers and the Michael Owens all come through Liverpool.
But this is what I'm asking you. At any point, maybe when you were older, were there kids who maybe trained with you, who were 16, 17, coming up, apprentices?
Joey Cole, Michael Carrick.
Yeah, and you felt these guys are better than what's on the pitch. They should play more.
Yep.
Did they want to? Can you just describe that environment when you had like a young Joe Cole?
Yeah, who was better than any one of us.
Well, no,
he was different
wasn't because Paulo Di Canio was on the team, and he would strike you down if you heard you say that.
And I was shared a dressing room with the both. And let me tell you, those two were quite fiery towards each other, trying to nick the same position.
But we know who's better.
Okay.
So let's not go there.
Right.
But honestly, what was the environment? Was there a lot of preoccupation at West Ham saying, like, we got to make sure this Joe Cole guy, he's like a Fabergé egg. How do we make sure he doesn't get hurt? Is he going to put on weight? Is he going to do this? How is he going to develop? Was there a lot of sports science involved in that?
Not a lot of sports science when Harry Redknapp was the manager, and then Glenn Roeder after that. But what you've got to take into consideration, these guys were very good at protecting the young players because you can't just stick them into 40 games of the Premier League when you're like 15, 16. And you're going to be like one of West Ham's potentially greatest ever players, or certainly like coming through the academy, and you're gonna play really well and be a superstar. Loads of them at the time. Michael Carrick comes into that conversation. You've got to drip feed them into the first team,
right?
Because you have to. Because
Lamine Yamal was not drip fed into the Barcelona first team.
Well, probably nor was Pedri. And it's a different game, Gab. The game now is more, I would say, on the talent because the pitches are perfect. The game sometimes, even though we mentioned intensity, can be that little bit slower where you take more time and you get more time on the ball. 90s and noughties football was like, you've got to fight for every single ball coming out of the sky. And you're going to land one at your feet, and Vinnie Jones is going to go straight through you. And if the ball's in the air, so is John Fashanu. That's the game we played. And so Brian Robson and Norman Whiteside and Steve McMahon and all these guys wouldn't give you half a second on the ball. Okay. So the Joey Coles of this world had to be protected a little bit more.
Okay, I think you're kind of...
I know I'm mishmashing the ages,
yes,
but
I think Whiteside had retired by the time. I know, but by the time you were a regular in the Premier League.
I know, but I
love that. Yeah,
but you get my point, though, right? You can't just lob these.
You're not going to bring up Billy Whitehurst, no?
Well, there you go. Yeah, but you can't just lob these young kids into
Norman Hunter was biting your legs.
You can't. You can't.
When it suits Don, he makes it seem as if he's an old timer. When it doesn't suit him,
because I played against the majority of them. I actually did when I was like 18, 19. So my 18, 19 goes into like 29. So I've come across all these guys. I know how tough it can be. More so, especially for a youngster. You have to protect these guys.
I'm wondering too, is there a psychological element to it? Because I go back, I mean, this game stands out, but it's not the only one, right? Barcelona against Inter, Champions League semifinal last year.
Yeah.
Barcelona need to get back into it. It felt like, I know Pedri half fit, whatever. They're just looking for him constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, something's wrong here. Like, he may be your best player, maybe. But it's already unhealthy if you just look for the best guy all the time.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? Because should he be in the team?
No, the answer is probably not. Being in the team, but everything was overloaded, and he took over. And you saw the number of times he tried to dribble. Inter overloaded his side time and again. Should we have a different attitude towards these young players, because there's a physical element to it, there's a psychological element to it.
So here's the problem, right? So here's the problem. If you take a different attitude and you say to Yamal and you say to Pedri and all these young kids, right, let's just put a number on it, right? Let's just say, right, the new law is for a teenager, you can only play 25 games a season. Let's just say that's like an unwritten law. So you're protecting the players not playing 50 games. At some point, because the kids are so good these days and there's so much stats around the game, people will jump on and go, oh, Yamal's only scored 10 goals this season. These guys want to be hitting 25 and 30. They want to be hitting 40 appearances. So how do you get the best out of these young kids with their numbers and their performances without playing them every single week? So my take when I go back to like Glenn and Harry, how they manage these young players is you say to Yamal in a game that Barcelona are going to win, you ain't playing today. Right. You're going to be sat in the stand. You're not even going to be on the bench. Then when we need you in 3 games' time for a big one, you're going to star in this game. So you take the workload off them.
I think it's interesting because, the way you do it is hopefully they're grown-ups, hopefully they're family supportive, hopefully they're surrounded by people who
It comes from the boss, though. It comes from the boss.
No.
It does, because he can decide if they're playing.
Of course, it comes from the boss, but just let me finish. What I'm saying is, if there's a right environment, right nurturing environment, you can sell them on the idea that if we bring you along more slowly, you can be one of the best players to have ever worn the Barcelona shirt, or what, insert whatever team. You can star here for 15 years. You can win multiple Champions Leagues and Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
If we overplay you, you can become Ansu Fati.
Yep.
Lamine Yamal knows who Ansu Fati is because he was probably 12 or 13 when Ansu Fati was him.
Can I say very quickly what his response would be? I want to be Messi. Also played at 16, 17.
Yeah, he's playing much more than Messi did at the time.
I want to be as good as him.
Okay,
so that's what the player would say to you.
That's fine. And maybe you will be. But you could also become Ansu Fati.
I know. So what? My point is, what do you do? Because you haven't got a crystal ball.
Yeah, no. I think this is an area where sports science really have to fill this gap, and you can't. And it's so broad, and it's still so far behind. We take it as read. I mean, obviously, I'm sure. Yeah. You've got stories about when you were breaking in at Liverpool, and you guys.
Or Neil Ruddock putting his heart rate monitor on the dog just to make sure that his stats were quite high when the physios were looking.
It sounds more like a West Ham type story, but
probably.
Yes.
I agree, though. Sports scientist is going to be amazing. It's
and
amazing
the facilities
now,
and everything, cryogenics, and it seems amazing, but it doesn't have all the answers, and there's still so much work to do. And I know it's just so important to get this right.
Definitely.
And I don't have a problem with playing the kids, and it's brave and whatever. But I would generally tend to err on the side of caution, because you may get outliers. You may get people like him, like Diego Maradona, like Messi, but even go back to Cristiano. Look how much Cristiano played when he was Lamine Yamal's age, and look at the role he had within the team. People forget that before Cristiano became the center of the universe, he was a fleet-footed winger who played sometimes. Sometimes he didn't play. Come off the bench, go on the bench. This is at 20, 21 years of age here. And this is freaking Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. Right?
So does that come down to a little bit of genetics? Does it also come
could
down
be genetics,
to looking after your body?
But could also help explain why Cristiano Ronaldo's still banging them in now that he's 40 years old. And why, broadly speaking, he's been mostly injury-free throughout his career.
So I don't know how he lives his life. No. I don't know this.
That's part of it. But I'm saying is he wasn't overplayed when he was young.
Right.
They did, I think all these things come together.
Yeah.
And wow, just something to think about this international break.